There's a type of intelligence that society celebrates, and then there's a type of stupidity that masquerades as wisdom. Most people spend their entire lives trapped in the second category, convinced they're in the first. The cruelest part? They never even suspect it. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. When was the last time you changed your mind about something fundamental? Not something trivial like your favorite restaurant or preferred streaming service, but something core to your identity, your beliefs, your understanding of the world. If you're struggling to remember, you might be facing what philosopher Dietrich Bonhoeffer called the most dangerous form of human limitation, one that has nothing to do with intelligence quotient and everything to do with something far more insidious. He wasn't talking about people who lack information. He was talking about people who actively resist it, people who've built fortresses around their thinking and stationed guards at every entrance. The terrifying part is that this form of stupidity doesn't announce itself with ignorance. It arrives wearing the costume of certainty. History gives us a brutal lesson here. When Bonhoeffer was imprisoned by the Nazi regime, he observed something that haunted him until his execution. He noticed that intelligent, educated people who could solve complex mathematical problems or recite poetry in 3 languages, had somehow become complicit in unthinkable atrocities. These weren't unintelligent people by conventional measures. They were doctors, lawyers, professors, engineers. So what happened? Bonhoeffer concluded that they had fallen victim to a particular brand of stupidity, one he believed was more dangerous than evil itself. He called it a moral defect, not an intellectual one. It wasn't that these people couldn't think. They had simply stopped thinking for themselves. They had outsourced their judgment to the collective, to the authority, to the comfortable narrative that required nothing of them except compliance. Think about your own life for a moment. How many of your deepest convictions did you actually arrive at through rigorous questioning and genuine exploration? How many did you inherit, absorb, or accept because everyone around you seemed to believe them? This isn't a criticism. It's the human condition. We're social creatures wired for belonging, and belonging often requires conformity. The problem emerges when we mistake this inherited wisdom for personal understanding, when we confuse the echo of other people's thoughts with our own voice. Bonhoeffer observed that stupidity in his definition wasn't a lack of cleverness, but a surrender of autonomy. It was the moment when a person stops being an individual and becomes an instrument, a mouthpiece, a vessel for ideas they've never truly examined. The philosopher Carlo Cipolla took this further with his famous theory of human stupidity, creating a framework that explains why societies crumble and why intelligent people make catastrophic decisions. Cipolla argued that stupid people, by his definition, are those who cause harm to others while gaining nothing themselves, often harming themselves in the process. These aren't the village idiots we can easily identify and avoid. These are the colleagues who sabotage team projects out of petty jealousy, even though it damages their own reputation. These are the political leaders who pursue destructive policies that harm their own constituents while enriching no one. These are the family members who create drama that poisons relationships, including their own. What makes them dangerous isn't their lack of intelligence, but their unpredictability and their imperviousness to reason. Here's what keeps me awake at night. Cipolla's research suggested that the proportion of stupid people in any population is constant and universal. It doesn't matter if you're in a university or a prison, a boardroom, or a commune. The percentage remains the same. Intelligence, education, wealth, none of these factors provide immunity, which means that some of the people you admire, some of the people in positions of power, some of the people you trust, and yes, perhaps even you in certain moments, fall into this category. The uncomfortable truth is that we all have the capacity for this type of stupidity, because it's not about raw intelligence. It's about awareness, humility, and the willingness to examine our own thinking. Now, before you start mentally cataloging all the stupid people in your life, let me redirect that impulse. The real question isn't who else is stupid. The real question is, where am I stupid? Where have I stopped thinking critically? Where have I accepted comfortable lies? Because the uncomfortable truth demands too much. If you're still with me, if this idea is creating some friction in your mind, some resistance or recognition, that's exactly where we need to be. Stay here. There's something profound waiting on the other side of this discomfort. And if this conversation is already challenging something in you, consider subscribing, because what comes next will take us even deeper into territory most people never dare to explore. Let's get personal for a moment. You know that feeling when you're in an argument and you suddenly realize you might be wrong, but instead of admitting it, you dig in deeper, finding increasingly creative ways to defend your position. That's not stupidity in the traditional sense. That's something more subtle and more universal. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, and it's one of the primary mechanisms through which intelligent people maintain stupid positions. Your brain literally experiences physical discomfort when confronted with information that contradicts your existing beliefs. So what does it do? It doesn't update the belief. It attacks the information. It finds reasons to dismiss, to discount, to disbelieve. This is your mind protecting itself, but what it's actually protecting is often the very thing that's limiting you. I remember watching a documentary about a man who had dedicated 40 years of his life to proving a scientific theory. When conclusive evidence emerged that his theory was wrong, he didn't celebrate the discovery of truth. He spent the remaining years of his life trying to discredit the evidence. This is what Bonhoeffer meant. This is what Cipolla documented. This is the hidden theory of stupidity. It's not about lacking intelligence. It's about being imprisoned by the need to be right, to be consistent, to maintain an image of ourselves that might be fundamentally at odds with reality. Think about your political beliefs for a second, whichever direction they lean. When was the last time you genuinely engaged with the strongest arguments from the other side, not to refute them, but to understand them? When was the last time you said, "I don't know," about something important, instead of offering an opinion you hadn't really thought through? When was the last time you admitted you were wrong in a conversation that mattered? These moments are rare for most people because our ego treats each admission of error as a small death. But here's the paradox that very few grasp. The people who are most frequently wrong are those who are never wrong. The people who remain stubbornly stupid are those who are always certain. Socrates famously said that wisdom begins with recognizing your own ignorance. But we've built a culture that punishes uncertainty and rewards confident mediocrity. We've created social media platforms where nuance goes to die and where the most extreme, most certain voices get amplified. We've constructed educational systems that test for recall rather than critical thinking. We've developed workplaces that reward those who have answers over those who ask better questions. Is it any wonder that we're surrounded by intelligent people doing stupid things? But here's where it gets even more interesting. Even more uncomfortable. There's a particular type of stupidity that afflicts the intelligent more than anyone else. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect in reverse. While incompetent people overestimate their abilities, highly competent people often suffer from imposter syndrome and underestimate themselves. But there's another trap entirely. Intelligent people often believe that because they're smart in one domain, they're smart in all domains. A brilliant engineer might think their technical prowess translates to political wisdom. A successful entrepreneur might believe their business acumen makes them an expert on education or healthcare. This is stupidity wearing the costume of expertise, and it's everywhere. The smartest people I know are those who understand the boundaries of their knowledge and remain curious beyond them. Let me share something that might hurt. You're probably stupid about something really important in your life right now, and the fact that you can't immediately identify what it is doesn't disprove the point. It confirms it. The nature of this type of stupidity is that it's invisible to the person experiencing it. It's the water the fish doesn't know it's swimming in. It's the assumption so fundamental you've never thought to question it. Maybe it's about your career, and you're pursuing a path that looks successful but leaves you hollow. Maybe it's about a relationship where you keep having the same fight because you're both defending positions neither of you fully believes. Maybe it's about your health, your finances, your purpose, your deepest values. Somewhere in your life, there's a place where you've stopped thinking clearly because thinking clearly would require changing something, and change is terrifying. So here's the question that separates those who grow from those who stagnate. Are you willing to find it? Are you willing to examine the beliefs you hold most sacred and ask whether they're actually true or just comfortable? Are you willing to be wrong about something that matters? There's a concept in Buddhism called beginner's mind, approaching every situation as if you're encountering it for the first time, without preconceptions or judgments. This isn't about being naive, it's about being open. It's about recognizing that your past conclusions might not apply to present circumstances, that your inherited wisdom might not be wisdom at all, that your certainty might be the very thing keeping you trapped. The beginner's mind doesn't accumulate knowledge like treasures to hoard. It holds knowledge lightly, ready to release what no longer serves and embrace what does. Now, what if I told you that the antidote to stupidity isn't intelligence? What if I told you it's something entirely different, something that has nothing to do with how many books you've read or degrees you've earned? Stay with me, because this is where everything shifts. The secret that philosophers have understood for millennia, but that modern society has forgotten, is this. The opposite of stupidity isn't intelligence, it's wisdom. And wisdom has a very specific definition. Wisdom is the ability to hold complexity, to embrace paradox, to remain uncertain where certainty would be premature, to change your mind when evidence demands it, and to act with integrity, even when it costs you. Wisdom doesn't broadcast itself. It doesn't need to win arguments or prove points. Wisdom asks better questions. Wisdom admits mistakes. Wisdom grows. Here's the framework that changed everything for me. There are 4 types of people in the world according to an ancient model, refined by countless traditions. There are those who don't know and don't know they don't know. They're unconsciously incompetent, genuinely stupid in the classical sense. Then there are those who don't know, but know they don't know. They're consciously incompetent, and they're actually in a powerful position because awareness is the first step toward growth. Then there are those who know but don't know they know. They're unconsciously competent, talented, but unable to teach or explain their gift. And finally, there are those who know and know they know. They're consciously competent, able to perform and instruct. But there's a 5th level that most models don't mention. It's the level of the true master, the sage, the wise person. It's the person who knows they know, and yet remains humble enough to recognize how much they still don't know. This is the person who has climbed the mountain of knowledge only to realize there are infinite mountains beyond. This is the person who has gained expertise but hasn't lost curiosity. This is the person who can hold certainty and doubt in the same hand without contradiction. The hidden theory of stupidity is that it's not a fixed state. It's a choice we make moment by moment, belief by belief, conversation by conversation. Every time we defend a position we no longer fully believe, we choose stupidity. Every time we pretend to know something we don't, we choose stupidity. Every time we refuse to update our thinking because it would be inconvenient or embarrassing, we choose stupidity. And every time we do the opposite, every time we admit error, ask genuine questions, embrace complexity, and remain open to being wrong, we choose wisdom. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one belief you hold strongly, something you defend in any argument. Now spend the next week actively seeking out the strongest possible arguments against it, not so you can refute them, but so you can genuinely understand them. See if you can argue the opposite position as convincingly as you argue your own. This isn't about changing your mind necessarily. It's about testing whether your mind can be changed, whether you're holding a position because it's true or because it's yours. The results will tell you everything you need to know about which side of the stupidity divide you're on. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti said that it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Sometimes the stupidest thing you can do is fit in, go along, accept the consensus. Sometimes wisdom looks like rebellion. Sometimes intelligence means standing alone. But here's the nuance. Sometimes the stupidest thing you can do is rebel for the sake of rebellion, to reject consensus because you want to feel special or enlightened. True wisdom knows the difference. We live in an age drowning in information but starving for wisdom. We have access to more knowledge than any generation in human history, yet we seem increasingly incapable of thinking clearly about the things that matter most. We can answer 1,000 trivia questions, but can't answer the essential question of how to live a meaningful life. We can explain complex systems, but can't explain our own motivations. We can connect with millions of people, but feel profoundly alone. This is the paradox of our time, and it's a direct result of mistaking information for understanding, intelligence for wisdom, and certainty for truth. The hidden theory of stupidity that they never taught you in school is this: you're not stupid because you don't know things. You're stupid when you stop trying to know things. You're stupid when you mistake your map for the territory, your beliefs for reality, your identity for truth. You're stupid when you choose comfort over growth, certainty over curiosity, being right over being free. And here's the liberation in all of this. Once you see it, once you really see how this operates in yourself and others, you can never unsee it. You become responsible for your own thinking in a way you never were before. You become the guardian of your own mind. You become dangerous to systems that require your compliance and stupidity to function. You become, in the truest sense, awake. So let me leave you with this. The question isn't whether you've been stupid. You have. We all have. The question is whether you're willing to stop, whether you're willing to examine the beliefs that feel most true, because those are the ones most likely to be limiting you, whether you're willing to sacrifice being right for being real, whether you're willing to trade the comfort of certainty for the adventure of genuine inquiry. If this message resonated with you, if it challenged something or awakened something, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about one belief you're willing to reconsider. Hit subscribe, because we're just getting started on this journey of unlearning the stupidity we've all inherited and choosing wisdom instead. The conversation doesn't end here. It begins here. And the world desperately needs people who are willing to think clearly, question deeply, and remain forever curious. Be one of them.